Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Hello? Thanks for joining us today. This
Sounds like
is
it's
that one. Is the Aspen City Council meeting for September 10th, 2024. That is a call to order. Could we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Counselor Doyle.
Here.
Counselor Guth.
Here.
Counselor Howenstein.
Here.
Counselor Rose.
Here.
Mayor Tory.
I'm here as well. No scheduled public appearances this evening, so we'll go right to citizens' comments and petitions. Again, this is an opportunity for citizens to address council on issues not scheduled for a public hearing this evening, and we do ask that you limit your comments to about 3 minutes so that everybody has a fair and equal opportunity to speak. Are there any members of the public that wish to address council this evening on any items? Please come forward, sir. If you would introduce yourself for the record.
I'm Francis Stuckins, former chef in Aspen for 35 years, and now at Carl's Wine Cellar in the Vortex in Aspen. I am here to propose once again, as I did last week. I wasn't fully prepared, or 2 weeks ago, my proposal for a marijuana hospitality business license. And that would be for a cannabis consumption club on the top floor of the Armory, if that is available. I think it would be a good source of tax revenue for the city of Aspen, and it can be operated by Green Cuisine Aspen, licensed as a food and drug business in town. I have before me the Colorado Marijuana Enforcement Division's application for a marijuana hospitality business license. So I would like to, I'll fill that out. I'll go ahead under the guidance of Lauren Mayton, the Colorado normal attorney. And I think, once again, it would be something that could very well be a great community gathering spot. I envision it as a library with, tables, and we'd be able to discuss while consuming the possibilities of, bridges, bags, stuff like that. And it would be a fun place to gather, too. Also a great source of revenue. Yeah, I don't know what else to tell you other than I'll proceed and keep on having this up to date with the council and the city.
Thanks, Francis. Right now the Armory programming is in process. A majority of this council agreed on a resolution that is looking at utilization of the Armory for multiple restaurant spaces, a few other vending spots. In the plans that have been shared with us so far, the top floor is slated for 2 restaurant spaces and a bar or 2. As we move forward, your next opportunity will be probably when we start to tap an operator and perhaps working with that operator.
All right, an operator, food and beverage?
The way it is moving now, we will be looking for probably a master leaseholder that will then sublease the various outlets in the Armory.
So it's still a possibility that we could have a cannabis consumption area?
It is not an impossibility.
Okay. All right, well, I'll keep moving forward and see where it goes from there.
Francis, just, it's going to be years before that space is available. So if you're looking for something short-term, you better start looking elsewhere, too.
All right, well, there's a couple options here. And it could be in another space in town if council is amenable to that. And it can also be a mobile thing where we go to private residences. But I'd rather it be something that's part of the city and part of a revenue center for the city and a community gathering spot.
Does a license of that kind go through clerk's office?
Yes. But we would have to, I think, pass an ordinance to add it to our charter. No. To the code, I'm sorry. And the issue did come up during COVID, but it was something that you guys didn't feel like discussing at that time. So we never went anywhere with it.
Okay.
Jim, is that is it legal in the state now to have consumption lounges?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that it's come up before us in the discussions that she has said, but I don't know if it's a local issue or a statewide issue. My understanding is it's a local issue and we would have the authority to allow it.
Yes.
But I don't think we have yet.
Okay.
That's what Nicole was discussing.
Okay.
All right, and yeah, the information is available through the Marijuana Enforcement Division, and they're accepting license applications. So I'll just keep on going till then.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks for doing what you do.
Thanks, Francis.
Other citizens for comment this evening?
Hi. Can you hear me? My name is Ben Wolf. I'm the general manager of Frias Properties. Some of you may know me from a couple years ago when we were talking about short-term rentals. I sat on the short-term rental stakeholders committee back in 2022 as the city worked towards passing the new legislation. And as we approach the 2-year mark, I thought it would be a good opportunity to look at some of the data we now have and share a little information with all of you. So in 2024 through August 1st, in the R6 zone, there were 12 permits issued, 81 total permits available, and 3 people on the wait list. In the R15 zone, there were 7 permits issued, 47 total permits available, and only 4 people on the wait list. So what this data is telling me is that in the R6 and R15 zones, the level of, or the capped level of permits is hovering right around where we want it to be. And these are truly residential zones, East End, West End, single-family homes. And back in 2022, those areas were expressed as a pretty big concern about, the residential neighborhoods turning into commercial lodging operations. And what the data is telling me is that those areas now are right around where the city wants them to be, which is a good thing. On the other hand, we have the RMF zone, residential multifamily, which mostly includes the areas adjacent to the downtown core. Mostly contains condo buildings that have had STRs since they were built, some of them 50-plus years ago. And the RMF zone has 40 units on the wait list right now. So in the RMF, there's 190 permits available, but because many were grandfathered in, there's currently 215 permits that currently exist, so we're 25 over the limit. That means it's going to take 25 units selling or not renewing their permit until one person on the wait list is issued a new permit. So really, there's no movement on the wait list. If you look at the wait list, the numbers are spread out amongst many different buildings. So there's only one building that has 4, a few have 3, one has 2, many just have one unit on the wait list. Frias is also an HOA manager, so we touch a lot of buildings. Many of them are in the RMF zone. And I personally am not aware of a single STR-related issue reported in any of those buildings. To us, to the city, maybe there have been some to the city, but haven't heard of any major issues. I'm also not aware of the cap on STR permits leading to anyone opening up their unit for affordable housing or renting to a local worker or anything like that. I am definitely aware of many of the units on the wait list in the RMF zone renting long-term for very high rates, and the city's not collecting a tax on that. So why am I bringing all of this up? I suggest that if the cap on permits in the RMF zone was completely lifted, there would be no noticeable or negative impact to those members of the community. But there could be one very positive impact in that the city could start collecting 10% tax on all those rentals. There's 40 people on the wait list. I would imagine most of them would opt in on their permit if they were given a chance immediately and start renting short-term. As of July 31st, the year-over-year STR Classic tax collection was down 9%. And I think it'll keep trending in that direction as units in the RMF zone sell or don't renew their permit and there's less rentals and no new permits are issued. So I'm asking City Council to discuss this matter and reconsider whether the STR permit caps in the RMF zone are helping or hurting our community. I suggest they are hurting our community by limiting the amount of tax the city can collect. And with all the planned affordable housing to be built, I think our community would support a method of fundraising that would have no noticeable or negative impact. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Question?
Yeah, thanks, Ben, for coming to talk. Do you have any other insight on whether the districting is done appropriately? Are there any specific properties that you think need to be recategorized? You don't have to name them individually, but
Yeah.
like, do you think that was done right or needs some adjustment also if we're going to look at this?
Well, I don't think that was done necessarily as it related to the short-term rental legislation. You know, I think certainly there are specific buildings in the RMF zone that should have a lodge overlay that don't. There are some buildings that do already. And I think you may start hearing from some of those buildings that are looking to get a lodge overlay. But I think just overall in the RMF zone, if you lifted that cap, I don't think anyone would even know, but you would start collecting a lot of tax. That's my opinion,
Yeah.
obviously.
Can you speak, Ben? I know that Frias, I should say, I suspect that Frias is not getting involved in renting units that don't have a permit on a short-term basis.
No, yeah.
But can you speak to those happening without Frias?
I believe there are definitely some units that are renting and signing a 30-day lease. We're definitely not doing this, but I have heard that, and I don't have specific examples, but, you know, of units or renters signing a 30-day lease and maybe not staying the entire 30 days. Yeah. Which I guess technically is not illegal, but. So I think honestly, many of these units that are on the wait list are renting long-term right now, or maybe long-term. And that's kind of why I say I don't think there would be a big change in occupancy or a big impact to these buildings that, you know, historically have had short-term rentals.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Dan, do we have any plans for a check-in on our STR program? On our long-range calendar? Or a upcoming work session list?
I haven't seen that we don't have one. If council would like it, we could add it.
Is there council support for having a check-in on STRs?
very much so.
And the STR program?
Yeah, I'd like to check in on it, but I think that the goals that were seeking are being realized, but I'd like an update on it.
Great. Yes, and yes, and yes, yeah.
We're looking at sort of December 2nd as the first available work session. Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Other members of the public for public comment this evening? Looking online as well. Seeing none, I'll go ahead. Tony?
She wins the lottery again.
Yeah, well,
That was purely by accident. Is it this chair or the other chair? Green button, right?
any chair you like.
Okay. So for the record, my name is Toni Kronberg, and I'd like to say once again that I want to give kudos to this council because I'm really proud of you, of the work that you've done on trying to solve the transportation issues with the entrance to Aspen. I do believe that you have created a team of community members, residents, commuters, worker bees. Almost everyone that's come before you, they have one goal in mind, and that is to solve the entrance to Aspen, not only the Merrill open space, the Castle Creek Bridge, but the roundabout, Truscott, Buttermilk, the lumberyard, the airport, all the way down to Brush Creek. And again, you've listened to everyone, and I want everyone to know that everyone's gotten a little piece of what they wanted. And especially for like Sam and Ward, one of your two main objectives was to make something happen with the entrance, with the ballot question. And between Tori, John, and Bill, that all of you coalesced. And I think the biggest thing that is really helping our community is that you pulled the ballot question, asking voters for a change of use of open space on Merrill for transportation purposes. Tonight, you're taking those two big steps, which is one is you're doing a feasibility study on the Castle Creek Bridge and also the repair and replacement of it. And then you're also moving forward with traffic studies and engineering work related to the transportation corridor known as the entrance to Aspen. The entrance to Aspen in the record of decision, and I have two asks tonight. In the record of decision, it states that there's two different components, and one is known as the highway and intersection improvements, and the second one is the transit system. And the highway intersection improvements start at Buttermilk and come into Aspen. The transit system starts at Pickens County Service Road, which is where the multimodal RAFTA and their maintenance building is. That's where the LRT is supposed to start. Then it goes to the airport for multimodal, to Buttermilk for multimodal, and then to the roundabout. My ask with Jacobs Engineering is that we take a look at the whole corridor that is specified in the record of decision. We can't solve this transportation issue just by doing the Castle Creek Bridge or just by looking at the Merrill open space. We need to do the whole corridor that is outlined in the record of decision. The second ask that I have is that we're going to be doing some public outreach and scoping. And you all know that I've been working on a project for 10 or 15 years, and that is the aerial connection between Ruby Park and Aspen. One of the things that you're doing is you're reopening the EIS, which I think is fabulous because now we're not limited to just taking a look at one or two things, but there's potentially a lot of different options out there. I don't know how we're going to solve the roundabout. One thing in my conversations with CDOT, they've said, you know, one of these intersections from Glenwood to Aspen one day is going to have some kind of transportation solution that you see like in the major cities, where coming off of Castle Creek Road, it goes up over the roundabout, Maroon Creek, come up over the roundabout. I don't know if that's going to happen here, but we really need to start thinking, especially about that roundabout. The traffic, the last week, without tourists in town, I've counted and I've taken pictures, 15 cars trying to enter the roundabout, both from Castle Creek and Maroon Creek. It's like there's just cars and cars, and then the roundabout is stopped. But, so my ask is, I am working on a resolution to put forward an initiative petition for a question on the ballot to ask Snowmass, Picken County, and Aspen elected officials if they will fund Phase 1 of a feasibility study on an aerial connection to see if we have a corridor that's available. We did a study about 10 to 15 years ago. We had a corridor then. I'm not sure if we still have that same corridor. The cost of the study is only between $25,000 to $40,000. You have an elected officials transportation committee meeting coming up on October 24th. My goal is to have these petitions submitted for review, approval, and to start collecting signatures. Because CDOT, the feds, elected officials, everyone involved, they want to see broad public support. And so I just don't see how, we don't have enough roadway to handle all the cars and whatnot. And when you think about all the benefits of it, and I don't want to go into the benefits now, that'll be part of the initiative petition that's being put forward. But I'm just hoping that by that October 23rd meeting, that I hope to bring in an aerial consultant to do a presentation at that meeting, and he can talk about the benefits, the costs or whatnot. And again, for each community, it would come to about maybe $9,000. But anyway, but thank you so much. As I said, I am convinced that this particular council, you are going to come up with a solution to the Aspen, because you're strategically looking at every element of it. And I think what you finally come up with, that you will have broad community support for it. But
Thanks. Tony, quick questions, and then
Go for it.
I'll give you a little bit of information. Did you say you are interested in a petition for a ballot question to support the aerial tram connection study?
it's for the feasibility of it,
Okay.
because that's the only way I think I can get the elected officials to pay attention to it.
Yeah, I mean, you've tried for years, so
And we brought- we
I
did-
don't think you need to go to that length, but we have some time to talk about it. Just to let you know what's going on that front right now is that we were scheduled for our joint meeting. We have quarterly joint meetings with the BOCC on next Tuesday. The topic for that was transit and regional mobility. We are looking at postponing that meeting next Tuesday because the current chair of the county commissioners, Greg Postman, and I have been having some conversations to bring to the EOTC potentially October 24th, as you said, to check in with the three entities, Picken County, Aspen, and Snowmass, about kind of a visioning and kind of thought-provoking meeting. As I describe it, we are interested in not necessarily selecting plans, but making sure that we're all just facing the same direction on this issue, which hopefully is forward. So we can talk more about this if you like, but there are meetings in the works that are along the lines of what you're talking about, that corridor treatment and regional planning, and not just isolating the entrance to Aspen or New Bridge and alignment without discussing a system-wide improvements.
So Tori, what you just said supports my opinion that this council is going to solve the entrance to Aspen from Brush Creek into Aspen. But I'd like to thank you very much for that. And that if I've been in discussions with the SE Engineering Group, and I've asked them if they can do a presentation on October 24th, just so everyone can understand what an aerial transportation system is capable of doing.
Understood. Diane, do you recall who is the host for the EOTC meeting?
I don't, I'm just looking at,
October
I believe
24th?
it's-
you might know.
Is it?
I want to say Snowmass.
Not sure.
I'm
Actually, I
not
should
sure
know what I
exactly.
know.
Do you recall, Pete?
I believe it's the main one is going to be at the county.
Okay.
But don't forget, they're bringing it separately to each group now for budget items, so it has a little bit different look than it has in the past. But it's something that we can absolutely work on as a staff, if that's your direction to go through with the other councils.
No, I just wanted to know who's setting agenda. I'll talk to Linda Dupree about it and find out. Because like I said, Tony, we're still trying to sort out the agenda for that meeting, so.
And I did put an ask into Linda, and Linda said that we could have a discussion during public comment. And I'm like, oh, we don't do that during public comment. So I asked if we could have an agenda item, but if you're moving forward with a visioning process, but there's still a lot of moving parts that we need to make sure between the airport and the lumberyard that we have a corridor that we have placeholders on.
Understood. Okay,
So,
okay, we'll talk more as we get closer to the meeting.
okay.
Thanks, Pete.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you.
Other members of the public for public comment this evening? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and bring it back to council table. This is an opportunity for council member comments. Any council members with comments this evening?
You want me to start? You gave me the look.
Board, please. Well, I didn't know if you were trying to, get last comments and join the game, but
No, Tony's got that.
go ahead.
Yeah, a few things coming up in the community that I want everybody to be aware of. The Aspen Valley Hospital Health Fair is going to be on the 18th and 19th. 18th in Aspen, the 19th in Algebel. And it requires a reservation. It's from 8:30 to 11:30. And you can call 800-217-5866 or go to aspenvalleyhospital.org and make a reservation for that. It's a great way to get your blood draws and a lot of tests that are really reasonably priced. An item that came up last night on the opening for the APSHA, there is one opening for a board member, and it is open until 9:13 at 5 p.m. for people to apply. You can get more information at pickencountry.com/360/citizen-boards. Coming up on the 13th, we have a couple of good things in the community. On Explore at 4 p.m., a meeting or a discussion with Lou Dawson and David Hale. I don't know if any of you have read Avalanche Dreams by Lou Dawson, but I think it'll be really interesting. I've known Lou since the late 70s and was unaware of his dirtbag past, but great book, and I think it'd be really entertaining to attend that conversation. And right on the tails of that, at the library on the same day at 5 p.m., discussion on the community read, which is Interghost, food and refreshments, followed by a screening of Hamlet, which is a focus of that book. And that's Aspen Words Community Read is Interghost. That's it.
Thanks, Ward. Sam, any comments tonight? John?
Yeah,
Just going in order.
or Bill,
I got nothing,
okay.
please.
Let's see, let's start with, from Axios, Phoenix hit 100 days of 100 degrees in a row with no end to the streak in sight. That just concluded last week. Phoenix hit 100 degrees for the 100th day in a row Tuesday, and the streak had no end in sight. Previous 100-plus degree streak was 76, set in 1993. For the 6 hottest summers on record in Phoenix were the past 6 years. Death Valley National Park, this is from CNN. Death Valley National Park has its hottest summer on record. Average 24-hour temperature is 104.5 degrees. Average low temperature was 92 degrees during that period. Little good news, the U.S. is getting its first electric bullet train factory in New York, and Siemens is opening a factory in New York. They're from Germany, and they're going to be building the trains that will service the Las Vegas to Los Angeles high-speed rail, which has broken ground earlier this year. That's it from the environmental front. Thanks.
Thank you so much. A couple comments from me this evening. The first, I want to give my thanks to all those that participated and supported the Mayor's Cup benefit golf tournament this past weekend. Thank you, Liz. We were able to raise a good amount of money for mental health services in our valley, and Headquarters, who is also the organization that administers the Mental Health Fund. I just want to use this opportunity to remind the community that if you or somebody you know could benefit from a counseling session or more, that there are funds available for you to defray some of those costs, and sometimes all of those costs. We want to make sure that everybody has access to mental health, fitness, and care. So if you want to get in touch with Headquarters, they will tell you how to go about taking advantage of some of the funds that are there for you. This council, a couple months ago, also supported boosting that fund. As we saw the previous year, there was about $75,000 that went out for mental health fitness for different individuals, serving almost 100 individuals. This council, because that money had run out, this council saw fit to go ahead and add some money to that, $50,000. That money is being gone through at this time as well. So this benefit golf tournament really does support that mental health fund as well as Headquarters in getting some of those services to our community. Once again, just make your friends and family and such aware that these resources are out there for them. Headquarters is the place that you can easily get a start on that. I was going to bring up something this evening for council consideration that has to do with some of the loading zones and construction zones for parking spaces downtown. I notice when I'm downtown that some of the signage for these loading zones says things like no parking anytime. That includes after business hours, that includes weekends, and it includes Sundays. My hope would be is that we can make that signage a little bit more appropriate to let people know when those parking spots are available to be parked in, such as Sundays or perhaps after 5 p.m. on different days. But I also really think that loading zones probably are most appropriately utilized and maintained as just loading zones until about 2 p.m. I was going to ask if council members felt that if they wanted to support some of that action going forward. I got a moment to speak with Pete, though, and he said that they are looking at that, and they are looking at some different changes in signage and accommodating some general parking in some of those loading and construction zones when they are not in use for those purposes. So, you know, I'd love, I don't know if any of you have an eye on that or have an opinion about that, but if that's something that you support looking at, I would look for a nod or.
Well, I'm quite upset with you because that's one of the only places I can park when it's busy in town because no one else knows those rules.
The loading zones are always open for you?
That's right.
Aside from that, would you?
Aside from that, I understand the notion.
Okay. If you're just as supportive of the work that they're doing.
Like to have a report back from Pete and see where we go from there.
Great.
Yeah, same.
Sounds good.
Great. Thank you, Pete, for listening to me earlier as well. Then I have a couple of communications briefings that I'd like to share with everybody. First of all, Mill Street Bridge work. If you haven't been down Mill Street recently, there's a fairly impactful construction project underway that affects traffic for the next several weeks. We urge you to take alternative transportation to alleviate pressure on the main thoroughfare in town. The city of Aspen last week began critical maintenance work on the Mill Street Bridge. The project follows a comprehensive survey conducted earlier this year, which identified a bridge joint in need of repair. Common theme around here right now. This proactive work, while temporarily impactful, will help prevent more significant repairs in the future. The Mill Street Bridge, originally constructed in '85, undergo repairs over 6 weeks. That work is scheduled during the workday, 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., Monday through Thursday. As I accessed it recently, it was basically a one-lane closure. So there is a stoppage to traffic in each direction for minutes at a time at the least. Traffic on the bridge will be still open to pedestrians, but they as well will experience some detours. The Rio Grande Trail underneath the bridge does remain open. Then I wanted to also let people know that this weekend, Saturday, September 14th, Mactoberfest is coming to our downtown city streets. On Hopkins Avenue between Mill and Monarch, sometimes we all refer to it as Restaurant Row, appropriate for a mac and cheese competition amongst local restaurants this Saturday, September 14th. It's a free event. Attendees will taste different mac and cheeses from local chefs and restaurants and vote on who has the best mac and cheese in town. A real showdown. Alcohol and beers will be available for purchase, and all proceeds are going to go to the Mother Pucker hockey team. This is an event that we specifically schedule for kind of that shoulder season time frame so that we can get as many locals out to enjoy it as possible. Hopefully we'll see you on the streets with mac and cheese on your shirt. Those are my comments for this evening. That brings us to agenda amendments. I'm seeing none in front of us, and that allows time for city manager's comments tonight.
None tonight, thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Board reports this evening. Are there any recent board reports that need to be updated? Yes, John.
I neglected to recount last Wednesday's APSHA meeting. First, just some comments from the board that APSHA renters provide their info every 2 years to show compliance. I think that's good for everyone to know. And a Colorado state law recently changed that affects APSHA renters. A violation must have occurred in order to terminate a lease. No violation, no termination. And then Ashley Pearl from Picken County Housing gave a presentation on what Picken County is doing for housing. They're looking at a deed restriction program and down payment assistance. They have 20 rental units up and down the valley and 1 overnight unit in town for snowplow drivers and situations like that. The only housing fund they have is from their housing impact fee, which isn't enough, and that is why they are putting the mill levy property tax increase on the ballot this November. They have 390 workers, and they are hopefully they have a goal of building 250 new units, I believe, over the next 5 years, and they are going to prefer local workforce with emergency workers, first responders, and teachers first in line. That's it.
Thank you very much. With no other board reports, we'll move on to consent calendar on our agenda. Tonight's consent calendar is resolution number 112, the contract change order for the Red Brick Arts Public Gallery and corridor improvements, and the draft minutes of August 27th, 2024. Does anybody wish to pull that item for discussion? If not, then I could take a motion for the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for the consent calendar this evening, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. That brings us down on our agenda this evening to our action items. Tonight, the action item that we are discussing is resolution number 113, setting forth upcoming steps regarding existing Castle Creek Bridge and other issues related to the entrance to Aspen. So if you recall in our last meeting, work session, we had a request to bring forward a resolution, but we also had some other direction that was given to staff, and so we are here to kind of formalize that with a possible resolution and other direction clarity for staff at this time. Jen, would you like to?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Jen Uten, Senior Project Manager for the City Manager's Office, and Pete Rice, who's the Director of Transportation and Parking. We identified all of the direction that we received in the September 3rd special meeting. It's included here in Resolution 113. The first bullet item that's represented in the resolution is related to the specific motion to bring forward the resolution. The other items that are included are that other direction that was indicated that council had support for, starting an environmental impact statement or supplemental environmental impact statement process, hiring outside legal counsel with expertise in the National Environmental Policy Act, the development of ballot language related to the entrance to Aspen, and then some polling that can help give some clarity to the formulation of that ballot language. This is included as a single resolution. It certainly could be split into more than one resolution. We do have a couple of areas of some questions for council that we'd like to get some additional information from council tonight. I will first note that the Colorado Department of Transportation is planning to conduct an inspection of the Castle Creek Bridge. Since we wrote this memo, have some understanding of when that will happen. So that's the 25th of September, which is, I think, a little sooner than we shared with you previously. I just want to note that CDOT had done an inspection 2 years ago. The city did an inspection last year. Both of those show that there's not any impending failures. And, as we get closer to the end of the bridge's useful life, more repairs are likely, and the frequency of those repairs is expected to increase. But I think we're seeing some concern from residents about the state of the bridge, and so just wanted to reiterate that there have been 2 recent inspections. There will be another inspection that will happen this month, and we'll have the results of it later this year, and that CDOT would act if there were any immediate things that needed to be addressed. With that, I'll move on to the questions that we have. So essentially related to the design question, which is included in bullet 1, related to the 2 or 3 lane bridge option, we were looking to understand from council whether or not that direction also included the S-curves. So that's one question. The other question that we had is that the process related to the environmental impact statement or the supplemental environmental impact statement will include public outreach. And so we were looking to understand if council wanted to see public outreach that's separate from the NEPA process. For example, as part of that ballot language development, for example, that's an area where there could be some public outreach. So with that, I will turn it over to you, and we're of course here to answer any questions that you have.
Thanks, Bill.
Firstly, thank you for a quick turn on this and reacting to my request so quickly and thoughtfully. Appreciate it. Secondly, I'm going to start with a question. Is my memory correct that in the Jacobs reports on the S-curve widening, the impact of that to traffic flow was stated as like marginal improvement, or?
You could consider it marginal. It does improve the situation around the S-curves through the geometry and simple differentiation of lanes. I think where you run into the same problem again is on the outbound, where the bridge does impact those S-curves, and that's really the pinch point there that is driving some of that isn't going to be, but, depending on how you go down solutions, it would be better geometrically, and it would improve flow of traffic if there was other conditions that were not inhibiting that pinch point, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. My gut is saying it's worth exploring the S-curve widening, softening, along with the 2 and 3 lane bridge options, and that will really help inform the public outreach to answer questions. So I wouldn't suggest that you start the public outreach soon, but rather later, once we have some design work completed and can answer some questions. And I think there are a lot of questions, many of them very reasonable, about what the impact of those design options might be. So to specifically answer your questions, yes, I think we should include S-curve widening, and yes, we should do separate public outreach specific for 2- and 3-lane bridge options once you have some design information back. Not to inform the design work, but to explain the design work and address concerns. Thanks.
Yeah.
Could I ask a question about process? We would anticipate that there would be, that the NEPA process is really the thing that needs to move forward quickly, whatever level of that process. There will be one that's related to replacement of a bridge or whatever option that deviates from the record of decision, the preferred alternative. Staff would recommend that we start that process first and have clarity coming out of that process to understand, to inform where we're headed, rather than doing design documents ahead of that. But I just would like to understand better what council's expectation is around that.
Yeah, my preference would be to do these things sort of simultaneously. I think that the NEPA process could be very different depending on which course of action is selected. It's my understanding, and I have a novice level of understanding on this, but it's my understanding that things like categorical exemption and environmental assessment are steps of NEPA, are parts of NEPA that are far less intensive than other parts of NEPA. So if we select, if the council selects, if the community selects, just replacing an existing 2-lane bridge, if that's the ultimate decision, that's a very different NEPA process than fully opening the EIS or SEIS or whatever these various things ultimately mean. So I think, yes, start it, but don't jump to foregone conclusions about how far we're taking it or to exactly which level we're taking it, if that's a possibility. Again, I have a novice understanding of these processes, but.
So the NEPA process itself is, you can't have go into it with an outcome that's pre-selected. So there, and, you know, we're entering territory where, you know, I think we are looking for other experts to give us some advice about exactly what this process looks like. But there will be, you know, the process itself, the NEPA process, is looking to see what the impacts are, and it's evaluating the different alternatives. So there's not necessarily a world where we can say we want to replace the bridge and then we pick the process. I don't know, Pete, if you want to give any other additional information.
I think that was a great summary. I think where we're struggling a little bit with this bill is like the process. If you go out with the process, to be clear, like Jen said at the beginning, the plan for the existing bridge and all that is already in a CDOT plan. They evaluate that, and they do the pieces of the planning of what happens with that bridge, how it's evaluated. And so that piece is always kind of worked on a little bit. The 3-lane bridge is not, obviously. And so because there's this outlying piece of this project that there isn't a lot of clarity on what people are supposed to learn. They can't learn 43 alternatives, right? It's too much. And so this process narrows that down, and it's not going to exclude the pieces that council wants necessarily. You're going to have that voice in this process as a stakeholder. The reason Jen and I would recommend kind of going through this process is to really start to bring clarity to this community. You've said that right now that this isn't the right solution for this community. So they really put this in place so that you can start to pursue those other pieces. They open the door for that. And the sooner you can get to that, I think that's going to help you lead to the solution or outcome maybe that this council wants. And so if you go into this design, we're just kind of recommending that maybe, you know, we're still going to have to go back to this. And so then you're jumping back and forth, and I think it does bring a little confusion to this community on what's happening. Whereas if you go through this process, it'll still give you your avenues, but it takes the steps from the state and federal process a little bit better. And because we've done so much already, this isn't trying to hinder this for 2 to 3 years. We've done a lot of these pieces, and we can bring in all these studies that we've done over the years. And so this community is at a high level of that type of alternative selection. You know, the environmental piece, we're well above a lot of the pieces of NEPA. And like Jen said, we need an expert to make sure legally, because there's going to be challenges. We're just saying, consider, taking a step-by-step process to get where you want to be.
I can appreciate the jumping around nature, and thank you for that explanation. I think you do have support at this table for moving forward with NEPA processes, so I'm not going to fight that, but I do still think we should concurrently work on advancing some information specifically on the existing bridge. That would be my preference.
We can, I mean, that is like I said, that is a continual, if that's just something that me and staff bridge can develop for you on like how we evaluate, they are the controllers. I don't evaluate it for them anymore, but we can bring that piece separate, but you still, to really move forward on this project, you really need, for your objectives that you've described, you really need to start this process of the alternative selection.
Fair enough.
And we can do both.
Fair enough, and to be clear, on the second piece, on the existing bridge piece, the 2- and 3-lane repair and replacement options that I suggested, if we can get to a point where we have more detailed information on what the costs, approval processes will be, property impacts will be. I know you've done some great work on that with Jacobs already, but I think unlocking that next level of information in detail about what it really will be simultaneously with the NEPA process would be really desirable for me.
And just for your, this NEPA process really does look at the corridor like you even like. And so, this is starting to evaluate it. We put a lot of pieces in now, what is the next step? And so this is giving you the avenue, like especially with the stakeholders getting back together. And I understand what you're saying. And we'll probably break that out if council's okay with that as 2 separate pieces and like have staff work on the existing bridge. And all those pieces that you've described will be part, this isn't, we did this very systematically so that this could be brought into an EIS process, and that information does go to the public. And there's probably going to be some more alternatives, if you've probably heard tonight.
Thanks.
Quick question for you. When we start this process with NEPA, do we put forth some of these potential alternatives?
They'll be included in it, yeah.
I mean, well, so for example, the record of decision preferred alternative as it has been shared with us was two lanes of general traffic, 2 dedicated bus lanes, and a transit corridor. And I think that I've heard questioning around the transit corridor piece being still part of the platform, because there's the thought that the dedicated bus lanes would be utilized for transit if at some time that was supported and fundable by the community. So if we are going to go into another process, is that the kind of thing that we would put into that process? We would say, hey, this is an alternative that we think needs to be explored. Similarly, a modified split shot alignment and that kind of, are those things that we put forth to say we want this evaluated and screened through the criteria?
My experience in the past with these type of projects is pretty much in a supplemental, they'll allow anything and they'll go through a series similar to what we did with Jacobs, where it kind of does the evaluation. In this case, in the past, as you well know, they had some flaws, and so they were screened. I think in this case, there's been enough discussion within this community, especially pertaining to yours specifically on the split shot and some of those pieces that they'd be looked at a higher level maybe on this one and presented differently. And you got to remember, we're just a player in this, so you're going to have different views that come into this from the rest of the valley. But it would be included in this. And I think, part of the scope of this is really determining, bring clarity of like how this process works, and I think as Jen and I work with Jacobs to determine the scope, we're gonna bring clarity of like how these are brought in, how the screening works, and try to bring you a little bit more into that. I think it is a complicated piece on how they bring in selections. So what I'm saying is, yes, that is gonna be brought in. I'm just not sure how many. Is it 43 again? Because you remember, each one had slight variations on each alternative on how it was done. And in this case, are we down to 8? Like, can we screen out, 35 of them and really focus on the solutions that have been discussed in this community?
So
for
as of
30
right now,
years?
you feel like there is the opportunity for us to both potentially narrow the alternatives as well as modify some of the alternatives that have been screened previously?
I think first you're gonna have to look at the community goals, and that's gonna be the evaluation of where everything else stands for the federal and state process, if anything like that's changed. There's a couple probably that you wanna look at pretty closely when you're looking at those community goals. Those community goals then drive some of that selection process. The community goals may have changed in the last 30 years, and so what I'm saying, that probably gives you your avenue to have these discussions in this process.
Okay. Ward?
Yeah, I really support a couple of the bullet points and do not support a couple of the bullet points. I think it's important that we proceed with the EIS, supplemental EIS and NEPA process. That would be my number one priority for staff to direct their time into hiring an attorney to assist in that. And I also support doing polling for registered voters to get an idea of where the public stands. So at this point, I do not support directing staff to do anything along the lines of bullet point 1, subject to what the CDOT inspection report shows, what CDOT will pay for, what the nature and repair condition of the bridge is. We've already spent money for Jacobs reports, phase 1 and 2. We know more about that corridor than anything else. We spent more time on that corridor. And I would not want to direct any more staff time towards that. And I think it's premature to have staff start writing a ballot language until we have results from NEPA and from polling. So I would move to adopt Resolution 113 amended to include only bullet points 2 and 4.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Further discussion?
Point of order.
Yeah.
My point of order, Ward, I just, not everyone had a chance to talk before you made your
Oh,
motion.
you have plenty of time once a resolution is on the floor. I mean, the
I know,
discussion is,
I know.
yeah, you can, it's open for
Yeah.
discussion.
No, I respect that. I just wanted to say, yeah, it's just, it's the most courteous thing is to make a motion after everyone's had a chance to talk. It's okay.
I agree.
Beyond that, no, I think, I agree with you about ballot language not needed until NEPA goes forward. I'm skeptical on polling, but I'm okay with it, depending on what questions we ask. But I do want to keep one because I do think it's important to expeditiously fix the current bridge. We're talking about short-term solution and long-term solution at the same time, so separating those two out. And I would even add a point on 1 and at D, basically saying seeking the most expedited NEPA approval, such as a categorical exemption or an environmental assessment, and doing that in conjunction with other entrance to Aspen solutions. So I'll be voting no on this motion, but I'm not like that far off. I just want 1 included, 2 in conjunction with the other ones.
Any further discussion?
I echo everything Sam just said.
Thank you. Yeah, Ward, that was a little quick on a motion. I would have rather had a little bit more conversation. And what I was about to get to was to entertain a motion for the resolution as written, so that if that is not supported by council, that we could then get to something that is, that may get council support. So, since there is a motion and a second, I'm going to have to, I'll give you my take.
Point of order, Tori. I think the chair needs to acknowledge the motion, so if you haven't acknowledged it, I don't think it's.
I have acknowledged it. I said that there's a motion and a second,
Okay.
and this is discussion period for it. And you're making it difficult to get to a resolution here. But that's your choice, so. John?
Yeah, I haven't really said much, but I also don't see the logic in spending more money on schematic level design on a 2-3 lane bridge option. I've said this many times. I don't think rehabbing the bridge in place is a good idea. It's the analogy I came up with previously. It's like fixing the bridge with traffic on it. It's like trying to fix a flat tire while your car's still moving. I don't see the logic in it. We need a second bridge, and that's what I think we should be studying. I don't want to spend any more money studying the S-curves enhancements.
Thank you. I need a minute. I need a minute to read and think about the motion that's on the floor. So I guess y'all can hang out for a minute. Yeah, I would want more discussion around point number 4. It says, for the purposes of assisting in the formation of a ballot language for the March 2025 ballot regarding entrance to Aspen, engaging community sentiment about the entrance to Aspen. I don't think that's necessary language in here. I do support conducting a poll. I don't know about hiring outside expertise because we haven't had a conversation about what that costs or what that looks like. So I would want some amendment on number 4 or more discussion. So I don't know, I guess I'll have to vote no on this motion and get more discussion around it.
Do you want to open the discussion on number 4? What is it that you want to?
Well, I'm all for conducting the poll, but I don't know that it needs to be stated for the purpose of assisting of the ballot language. We have a desire to move towards ballot questions, but as I've said before, only if a ballot question is appropriate. I don't know that the poll is going to give us appropriate ballot language. I don't know if this council is going to agree on a ballot language going forward. So I would just strike that last part of it. And then I would want to ask and get some information about what does it mean to hire outside expertise to conduct a poll? How much does that cost? What is our ability for input? What does that mean? So.
Tori, are you not supportive of number one? I feel like that was the main purpose of Bill's motion to
It
bring this
is. I am
resolution.
not supportive of item number one. I'm not supportive of spending design money on an option that is not going to be utilized, because it's either going to be 2 or 3. And I don't know which it's going to be, but I know it's not going to be both. So I'm not supportive of spending money with Jacobs at this time for design work. I don't know what conducting the public outreach means in that whole scheme of 2-lane and 3-lane scenarios and developing funding solutions. I think that this is more appropriate after we get back the study from the bridge inspection slated for just a few weeks away. Then we'll know. Another question that I had was, but we have a motion and a second on the table. So in order to, I think we need to deal with that, and then maybe I can get my questions answered.
Tori, I mean, I can amend my motion on, if you want to redirect on number 4.
Yes, but I don't know if we should take the motion as it sits now. We can redo a motion after this one.
You can also amend paragraph 4, because it's my understanding of the motion, it's to delete 1 and 3.
1 and 3.
And
Maintain 2.
maintain 2 and
And
keep 4.
4, I'm just hesitant on the second, on the for the purposes.
If somebody wishes to propose amendment to delete the last phrase of paragraph 4 for the purposes of assisting and ... You can do that.
We're almost there. I still have questions about what hiring the outside expertise, what does that entail? What does that mean for us in the process?
Mr. Mayor, would you like staff to answer that question?
Yes. Yes.
So the work that I've done so far on this is to look at RFPs that or contracts that we've had in the past for polling. And then the folks in procurement were nice enough to also pull some from other jurisdictions. So kind of putting together language that would kind of encompass this idea of both gathering community sentiment, but then also potentially having some informational meetings that might be part of that in the development of potential ballot questions. It's not necessarily saying that you would set a question. It's more to inform the understanding of where the community is and to potentially refine ballot questions. So that's the work that I'm doing so far. It looks like the most recent time that we did that was, if you'll give me just a second, I can probably pull it up, but I think it was only like $14,000. So it wasn't a large expenditure, but I did anticipate that there would be some back and forth about what are those questions that we're asking once we had a firm on board that would do that polling. And I can certainly look up when that last time that we did it, but I kind of want to say that it was 2022, but I can look.
I think we did something in the Wheeler Rat.
Those prices are consistent with other pollings, and this specifically refers to, as Jen's pointing out, issuing an RFP to hire someone to do this work.
So, Tori, would you support if we, instead of saying hiring outside expertise, to issue an RFP to scope in?
I suppose that's what you're saying the process would be?
Yes, it would be just directing staff to issue an RFP to hire a polling consultant to consult on and conduct a poll.
So yes, so on item number 4, the amendment that I would ask for would be striking for the purposes and to issue the RFP. So hereby direct staff to issue an RFP seeking outside expertise to conduct a poll of registered voters in Aspen. And I would leave in there to be completed prior to the deadline for submission of ballot questions for the March ballot. But at that comma, I would take out for the purposes of assisting in the formulation of ballot language.
I would accept that amendment to the motion.
And the seconder?
I'll second.
And then my other question that I wanted to get out was this inspection that's gonna happen. If the inspection comes back and says, you're at a substandard level on this bridge, and there are potential weight restrictions as a first step, do we have any feeling or knowledge about what opportunity that gives us for stabilization and repair? Right, so
CDOT has a whole process for that, and not going out on a limb because people don't do this, I don't expect anything to change during this inspection. I've kind of wandered down there and had discussions with a few of them today. That being said, if that were to be done, it depends on the piece of the structure of the 3 structures, and then CDOT would systematically what needs to be repaired here, and they would assume that repair, it depends. And the level, the weight restrictions would be a little bit down the road, but it's important to remember, steel is kind of funny, right? Like, it can hang in there, it can hang in there, it can hang in there, and then it goes quick. But
did you say steel's kind of fun?
funny. It's a little bit different, like the way that the moments work and all that with the steel in particular. There is some bending and some stuff like that is occurring. But I would not expect anything like that to come up in this next month. And we've done a lot of inspections in the past few years, and this bridge is probably one of the most watched bridges, minus 6th Avenue in Denver and some of those areas. But I would not anticipate something like that occurring where we need to start discussing weight-related issues.
Okay. Okay. Bill?
Thanks. I want to remind everyone that the EIS or SEIS that you're approving in number 2 here, or contemplating approving, are multi-year processes. And by not advancing work on our only bridge into and out of Aspen, in the meantime, I think you're acting quite irresponsibly.
I object to that.
Please do not interrupt me. No one wants to hear from you right now. It's rude. You've been discourteous twice today. Stop talking.
I have not been
both
discourteous,
of you
Bill.
guys. Hey,
Unbelievable.
enough,
In the middle of talking.
enough. Finish your statement.
I think it would be acting very irresponsibly not to advance work on the existing bridge that is the lifeline to our community now. It's not tremendously incremental money versus what we've spent so far. And even if the EIS only takes 2 years, there's a lot of years beyond that before anything is implemented. These are long-term conversations that we're having, and we need to be responsible and thoughtful about the short term in the meantime. I think the community response to not taking action on this existing bridge will be fierce. I think it's not smart not to act on this right away, and we have an opportunity to do both simultaneously. So I urge you to reconsider that. I urge you to act on doing something about the existing bridge now, not wait until we're in a crisis moment. Thanks.
Thanks for your comments. Further discussion? Ward?
Yeah, Bill, I think that, I think Pete just presented that CDOT isn't going to let that happen, and we will have more information on that after the inspection. So I don't think that this council is being irresponsible for waiting for the inspection to proceed.
All right, thank you. For clarity, the motion on the table is for resolution number 113 amended, removing item number 1, city council hereby directs staff to work expeditiously, along with points A, B, C, and D. It retains section 2 in its entirety. It removes section 3 in entirety, and it retains section 4 as amended to read, City Council hereby directs staff to hire outside expertise to conduct a poll of registered, City Council hereby directs staff to issue an RFP for outside expertise. Seeking outside expertise to conduct a poll of registered voters in Aspen to be completed prior to the deadline for submission of ballot questions for the March ballot period. Is that correct, according to the motioner?
Yes.
And the seconder agrees?
Yes.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote for the motion, please?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Guth,
No.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Rose,
No.
Mayor Tory.
Yes. Thank you. Pete, you gave us a timeline at our last meeting. So if we're looking at the bridge inspection happening September 25th, when do you see those results coming back? About a month later or something?
Yeah, usually I think we gave you December for that timeline to get those reports back, and this might be a little bit before Thanksgiving. It's usually a month and a half. They might bump it up because they know this bridge and they know you're waiting on decisions.
Okay. All right, thank you. Jim?
Mr. Mayor, staff is requesting the council go into executive session pursuant to CR Section 24-64024A, the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of real, personal, or other property interest. 4B, conference with an attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice, and 4E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations. The specific items of discussion involve the ongoing litigation of the Centennial Owners Association versus City of Aspen. And the second item is instructing negotiators in developing strategy related to negotiation involving the Holy Cross franchise agreement, and a conference with the city attorney to provide legal advice regarding issues associated with the city's grant of a franchise to Holy Cross. Council votes to go into executive session. The executive session will be recorded, and the recording will be maintained for a period of not less than 90 days. And as always, if you elect to go into executive session, we will convene the executive session downstairs. And we will not return to this meeting room for adjournment.
Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for executive session, please?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Guth,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Rose.
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes. Thank you. As the city attorney stated, we will not be reconvening up here. There will be no further business discussed after our executive session, and we will be adjourning from our downstairs chambers. Thank you all, and thank you again to Grassroots as always.